The following video is a Dennis the Menace production. Dennis the Menace, this name will never stick. On this episode of Is That Going to Be on the Exam?, we look at high-tech cheating. When discussing cheating, one of the first questions that comes up is, why has cheating become so common? Cheating has become common in many schools due to the large amount of ways to access the internet and use technology. Before the beginning of the internet and mobile devices, it was very hard for students to cheat. They had to do it manually through pen and paper and hiding notes or writing on their arm. But in today's society, all they need is a mobile smartphone, a laptop, an e-reader, or anything really that has access to internet or memory capability. So the first example I used was a mobile smartphone. Mobile smartphones can be used to communicate with other students, and many smartphones nowadays have access to the internet. Therefore, they can go online, find information, and then share it with their friends. Same with laptops. And e-readers also have specific memory capabilities that you may be able to take notes or something. And another important thing is the storing of notes, as I said. So it's very important to try and limit these as much. Okay, so ways technology is used to cheat. As I said earlier, access to the internet, stores notes in memory, and take and share photographs. So I kind of explained the first two earlier, but also the taking and sharing of photographs is very important in today's society. So especially with standardized tests that are nationwide, such as the SAT or even IB exams, which are globally. So in this sense, if a student has a smartphone that has a camera, internet capability, or can send messages, all they have to do is take a picture of the exam, send it to a friend that's in a different time zone that maybe hasn't taken the test yet, and then they have the questions, or even post it online for the entire world to see, where thousands upon thousands of students can see what the questions are going to be and have that extra preparation time. And not just extra preparation time, but preparation with the test to go in and find what they're going to want to say and find information to use, which is unfair to students that are taking the test at the same moment as the other student who took the picture because they did not have that prior knowledge. Alright, another thing that we need to look at when discussing high-tech cheating is plagiarism. Plagiarism is an act or instance of using or closely imitating the language and thoughts of another author without authorization and the representation of that author's work as one's own, as by not crediting the original author. I got this definition from dictionary.com, which is in my sources on the final slide. But when you're looking at this, it's pretty interesting. Oh, by the way, I said that just so I wasn't plagiarizing, so this would be an example of not plagiarizing since I gave credit to the author, especially since it's in my sources. So when looking at plagiarism, it is taking information that is not yours, taking intellectual property of someone else and passing it off as your own. So in a way, it's technically a type of stealing, which is, we all know, very wrong and very illegal. So you need to look at this as, well, look at plagiarism as a type of stealing ideas, even though it's not a solid, tangible thing. An idea is someone's property, and if they have it written down somewhere, it is their property, and you cannot just steal it and pass it off as your own. So plagiarism is being used in several different ways. Students steal intellectual property, as I said earlier, and they can steal it knowingly or not. We'll get into that in a little bit. And then they do not give credit to the source for where they got the intellectual property. So as I was saying, they can knowingly or not knowingly steal intellectual property. Knowingly would be obviously like, oh, here's this information, I'm going to copy and paste it into my own work. And then not knowing would be if someone has not been educated, either they're too young to have been taught it, such as a second grader or a third grader, or they have simply not had many internet classes or teachers that are tech savvy, and never thought it was important to share with students that that's plagiarism. So in that way, they might not even know that they're stealing property. They think they're just finding information, and they're like, oh, yeah, that's what I think too. And then they're just going to copy and paste it exactly instead of retyping it. By passing this off as their work, students no longer have to do any work, just steal the ideas of others. So They don't have to do anything. They just go on, copy, paste, and done. They don't have to think about it or anything. The most thinking they have to do with the topic if they plagiarize is typing keywords into a search engine. So it definitely makes school a lot easier, and it doesn't really put strain on students to actually think anymore. Many people are also starting to believe that plagiarism is being pushed on students. Many sites offer free sample essays to give students ideas on what to write about. So they'll put a free essay online, and then it's supposed to just be there to give students kind of like a jumping off point. They're like, oh, there's a cool idea. Now, what if I did such and such with this? Which, in essence, is not a very strong type of plagiarism, but it is still plagiarism because you're using their idea. Even though you're adding on to it, if you're just stealing their idea and you didn't really think of it on your own or word it in your own way, it's still plagiarism. But this isn't as bad as essay mills. Essay mills have become very popular as of late, and an essay mill is where, for a fee, students can go on to a site, pay money, and then have an essay sent to them. So this is honestly just for students not to do work at all. It's to buy a grade, which is not right at all. It's unfair completely. Students don't have to do any work. They just have to pay somebody to do the work for them and then pass it off as their own. So that has become very popular, and it needs to be stopped. It's very harmful to students' education, so it really needs to be stopped in some way or another. There are many different ways that are trying to control plagiarism, the first of which is the use of ITAUPs, which are acceptable use policies. So the idea behind ITAUPs are guidelines or even handbooks such as IB students have to sign, where students will sign saying they will follow these guidelines on how to use the internet while doing research and not steal information. So it's kind of like a written contract that students need to follow, so it's kind of a trust basis. Another way is the use of search engines. After a paper has been turned in, many teachers now are starting to maybe find keywords in the essay or just take chunks, copy and paste it into a search engine window, and see what the top results are. And then they'll go on, and if it is verbatim what the student has written, they will know they obviously plagiarized. And even sometimes if the ideas are commonly similar with only a few differences, it'll be still fairly obvious that a student cheated. Final way of controlling plagiarism is the use of anti-plagiarism software. So with anti-plagiarism software, you can take an entire essay that a student submits, plug it into the software, and the software will has a link up to databases that has information from essays all over the internet and even past essays that a teacher has submitted on there. So if they use the same topic of an essay, they can make sure a student isn't copying another student's work. And then after it's plugged into the software, it will compare the essay to all other essays that it has in its databases. And then it will tell the teacher a percentage, it'll give a percentage of how much that paper is either copied or ideas have been reused in other essays. So that makes it a lot easier for teachers to tell if someone's plagiarizing, and many teachers will find different percentage barriers that they believe is correct or not to grade students. And these are the sources I used to gather information for this PowerPoint. Thank you very much for watching another Dennis the Menace production video. Dennis the Menace Productions. I can't believe that name stuck.